As we get more and more signs that we're hurting this world with everything we're doing, people find more ways to possibly save on the damage that we're dealing with. One of these ways is through regenerative farming for fashion and clothing. But is this really good for fashion or what? Well, stay tuned because today we are going to discuss, is regenerative farming good for sustainable fashion? First up, what are other companies doing right now? Right now in the current fashion world, we have so many companies who claim to be sustainable and for the environment. More and more brands nowadays are flaunting that they are sustainable, organic, or natural, and their fabrics and such are exactly that. Sadly, clothing nowadays can easily be greenwashed. One study just recently by Changing Markets Foundation found that actually more than half of the environmental claims made by fashion companies like Uniqlo, H&M, and even Zara were unsubstantiated, meaning that they just aren't good enough. Another thing is that even brands that are always talking about sustainability like Reformation and Levi's are falling into the could do better category by those researching into things. This is especially true for things like polyester, as they use fossil fuels to produce. The great thing is that new types of sustainable fashion are hitting headlines and are seemingly focusing on how these materials are being grown. Brands like Eileen Fisher, Stella McCartney, Christy Dawn, and Kering Luxury Group, which contains high-end brands like Gucci, Bottega Veneta, Balenciaga, and Alexander McQueen, have ventured into the realm of regenerative agriculture to promote a more sustainable fashion experience. This new form of regenerative agriculture is defined as being a farming practice that restores soil biodiversity. A recent study by the National Academics of Sciences estimated that across the United States of America, regenerative agriculture could sequester 250 million tons of carbon, a chunk equal to around 4% of the country's total emissions. Next up, what else do we know about this practice? This new method is pretty interesting, and certain people in the fashion industry have begun talking about it. So what else do we know about this practice? Well, Marion Wilson, the head of the regenerative practices at the dressmaker Christy Dawn, says it's a holistic method of working with an ecosystem and creating mutually beneficial connections. It uses no chemical inputs, infuses the soil with nutrients using compost and fertilizer, uses low and no tilling, introduces biodiversity with cover, pollinator, and trap crops, and ensures all farmers are paid a living wage. Best of all, regenerative farming absorbs more carbon than it releases, making it a solution to climate change. One thing we do also know is that these new practices will obviously vary from brand to brand, as they all have different resources and different ways of going about things. An example is the Kering Group, as their goal right now is to transform more than 2 million acres of land in Argentina, Spain, Mongolia, South Africa, and even India into regenerative agriculture spaces for things that we use all the time, like leather, wool, cashmere, and cotton. Is going to be great, and if more and more companies get on this new trend, we should be seeing even more advances in the world of sustainable fashion. Another way of getting this into the hands of more people is giving them the option to purchase specific items through regenerative farming practices. A small company called Christy Dawn is allowing customers to specifically purchase clothing, and more specifically dresses, spun from the fibers from the land they invested into through the company opportunities. This will also allow them to potentially make some profit off the rest of these crops involved in creating these clothes. So is everyone sold on this process? Whilst this new sustainable and regenerative method of farming and creating new clothing is well regarded and being accepted by many, not everyone is seeing the greatness that it could hold. Some are being very speculative about it all. So is everyone sold on this new process? Well, it looks like some experts in this field aren't completely sold. We are seeing people like Teresa Lieb, who is the food systems analyst at the GreenBiz Group, talk about the bad things that this could create. She wrote an article about the dilemma that this new process could create. She said, "The dilemma of constantly buying new things is a problem that needs to be dealt with urgently. Nearly 70 new garments are purchased on average every year by American consumers, and some 85% of disposed textiles are simply tossed into a landfill or burned. It's more than just about designing a better product," Lieb argues. It's about creating fewer, better, and longer-lasting clothes that won't end up in the landfill. She also notes that it's important to prioritize necessities like food, fuel, and everyday fibers in agriculture, especially as farming and development push more and more species into extinction. It seems like conserving land is better than farming it regeneratively, in her own words. Whilst this is a valid explanation for not agreeing with or liking this new practice, she is definitely in the minority when it comes to the process. Consumers will now have more ways to choose what they are buying in terms of how and where it's made. If this new process of regenerative farming is better, they won't have to purchase things as often as well. The main goal here is to make clothing better and to make it better for the environment to make. They want people to buy these new types of clothing and to keep them for a very long time. They don't want them to fall apart after a year or so. They need to be sustainable, so less clothing is purchased in the long run. Stay tuned because here's some more farming news. So, sadly, UK farming antibiotics are continuing to fall. This first bit of news is a really sad and important one. So what's going on with these antibiotics? Well, this has been going on for a while now, but it seems like the highest priority critically important antibiotics that the UK needs for farm animals are continuing to fall in sales. This shows that the progress made by agriculture to tackle antimicrobial resistances is going great. This is now the 6th year in a row now that sales have begun to fall, which is sad for the companies, but great for the farmers and their amazing animals. The total reduction of around 79% since 2014 is astronomical, and it's just an insane amount of loss. Abigail Seeger, who is the chief executive of the VMD, said, "Working closely with the farming industry and the veterinary profession, we've achieved huge reductions in the use of antibiotics since 2014, and we're seeing reductions in resistance as well. These successes are testament to the cooperation between farmers and vets in promoting the responsible use of antibiotics." A new report also highlights where targets are already being achieved and where they are sustaining or staying around. This also shows challenges for the future of this idea. And finally, we have potato growers in the UK who are facing legal action. But why? And our final bit of news about farming is coming once again from the UK, where farmers are facing legal action. Why is that? Well, it turns out that a new warning has been sent out to UK potato farmers named the AHDB, and it's warning for those who failed to submit a 2021 potato planting form and who refused to pay a levy earlier in the year. From what we can see, it's actually an insane amount of people who are facing this legal action, as about half of all farmers actually declined to fill in this form and pay the levy. The letter was created by Naveen Gupta. He wrote, "If you fail to make a return or inform the board that you are not liable to pay levy within 28 days of this notification of the estimate, you will become liable under Article 7.2 of the order to pay levy in accordance with that estimate." Seems like these growers have a lot to sort out, and something big seems to be happening in the UK. According to the creators of this letter and those behind it, this money is meant to meet the cost of winding down the charges from last year. But people don't agree with it. They're basically being taxed for planting each potato, and they don't agree at all. Whilst nothing much has been said about what will happen if this legal action proceeds, it looks like some changes need to be made in the UK to sort this entire situation out and make all farmers happy once again. And that's the end of the video. Regenerative farming is going to change fashion for the better, well, in most people's eyes. There are those who don't agree with it and can't see the value in it at all, but overall, it seems very positive in the fact that those who want to purchase this sort of clothing can get it. The option is the best part, as the customer has more choices than ever if they want to help the environment or not. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let us know in the comments below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on. Thanks for watching. Bye.